Serious, what's the creepiest scariest thing that you've seen but no one believes you? My one weird thing was this. Some friends and I were hanging out one summer's eve. We were around 15. It was night, clear, and we were all lying on my friend's trampoline in the backyard. We were just all chatting and looking at the stars. Suddenly, we're all like, what the freak? Did you just see that? We all swore we saw a formation of stars trade places with each other. They sort of left a tail, like a shooting star, before resettling in their new positions. They all moved at the exact same time. It was strange. 3 of us seemed to see the same thing. It was the night before my stepmom died, lost her battle to cancer. I was 22, was spending the night in bed with my 9-year-old half-brother, cuddling him and telling him his mom was gonna be okay. It wasn't gonna hurt anymore. It's about 3 AM at the time, and after a while he immediately sits upright in bed, smiles, says I promise to be a good boy, mommy, I love you. Now my stepmom has been bedridden for the last month, so she's not moving anywhere, but I swear on my life, and my little brother agrees with me, for a split second I saw her standing in the doorway wearing her big giant fur coat, just smiling at us and just looking relieved. Brother went to sleep about 2 minutes later. I left to go into my dad and stepmom's room to check on her to see my dad awake and telling me she died about half an hour ago. I genuinely believe she stopped by on her way to the other side to check in on her 2 kids and make sure we'd be okay without her before she left. When I was 16 I skipped school to stay home and play video games. I set up my PlayStation and made some hot pockets, and right when I get good and comfortable I hear footsteps walking to my room. I glance outside and see my parents aren't home yet, but was still afraid I was going to get caught. Seeing no place to hide I froze. Suddenly the door was flung open and I heard a blood-curdling scream echo through the house. I must have sat there petrified in that room for half an hour before going outside and waiting for my parents to come home. I tried to explain to my friends later what happened, but they thought I was just pulling some bullsmack from the internet. Was walking through the Rockies and managed to tear the muscle on the side of my foot, so was hobbling back. I was on my own like a moron. In the space of hobbling back to Jasper I saw a white bear, think they are called spirit bears, just sitting watching me. Literally thought fuck's sake I'm gonna die here mauled by a bear and no one knows where I am. But it just sat there and poured the dirt in the direction of the town. I limped on keeping an eye on it and it just watched me. Then I swear to God no more than 5 minutes later a fucking wolf appears limping exactly on the same foot I'm limping on, eyes me up and continues on its journey. I think I was even too pathetic to bother with is the moral of that story. I was petrified though either way. I was a missionary in South Africa. One of the creepiest things that happened to me was on New Year's Eve. During that night, I woke up feeling really thirsty. I walked toward the refrigerator in the kitchen, and as I was drinking water, I turned around and the front door was wide open. I could see the stars in the black sky and hear the faint sound of crickets in the distance. Not thinking anything of it, I closed it and went back to bed. In the morning, my missionary companion woke up first and noticed the door was wide open. It was then that we realized we had been robbed throughout the night, and I still remember my heart dropping as I realized the perpetrators were most likely in the dark house while I was in the kitchen in the middle of the night. Still gives me goosebumps thinking about it. I don't know what it was because I don't remember it, because I was a baby-toddler, but my mum certainly does and mentions it occasionally. I was her first kid, and when I was born my parents lived in a little old house in Scotland. Mum says that really quite often. Both I and the dog would stop whatever we were doing at the same time and both look towards the stairs as if we were watching something either descend or ascend them. This is corroborated by my dad and a few of their friends who saw it happening. It's basically their friend group's weird inexplicable story. I just happen to be an unwitting part of it. Unfortunately I have no memory of this at all and the dog in question died 30 years ago, so they'll never get their answer. It's not that people don't believe me, it's more that I hardly believe it myself. It was late, probably between 1 and 3 AM, and I was sitting at an intersection waiting for the lights to go green. Across from me was a dark road with trees on either side and thick woods off to the left and houses off to the right. So I'm sitting there listening to music when I see something move at the edge of the woods to the left. Now this is rural New Jersey, so things moving in the woods are either bears or deer, which aren't scary, but deer will fuck your car up if run out in front of you. I turned my high beams on to see what it was, but they didn't reach the woods. Then I saw more movement before the light turned green. I made my left turn and drove off, but I couldn't see what it was. The next day I drive the same route on my way to work, and when I get to that intersection there's cops and ambulance over at the edge of the woods where I saw the movement the night before. I asked a co-worker what happened and he said they had found dismembered body parts there early that morning. TLDR. I either saw a murderer, a bear, or the Jersey Devil kill and dismember someone. I know I'm late, so this will probably get buried. My friend's grandma's house, I swear, is right up against a cemetery. He always told me it was haunted and would see crazy stuff there, but I never believed him. One night, we were over her house and I swear, I saw something the size of a toddler run from the living room, through the dining room and into the kitchen. When I looked at my friend, he just went, "Did you just see that kid run through the freaking house?" It looked more like a fast running shadow than an actual person. There was no one there. There were no kids around. It was his grandma's house and we were the only ones over. It was late at night and no doors opened or closed. When we told his grandma, she was just like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It happens all the time." After that, I started believing in ghosts. My friend also said when he used to sleep there, he used to push the spare room's TV away from him so it faced away from him, because he would wake up at night and see people in the reflection staring back at him watching him sleeping. Scared the crap out of him. Was out camping near Crater Lake or alone. Trekked in about 10 miles from the trail with very light gear and made camp on a ridge overlooking this valley. Wake up in the middle of the night to shouting in the distance. Look down in the valley and see 2 flashlights moving in one direction. I figure it's some campers night hiking or playing a game. So I just observe. It becomes apparent they are looking for someone. I can barely hear them, but once in a while they shout out something like, "We will find you" or "Come out." I can't remember exactly, but it was like they were toying with someone. Hide and go seek? That's what I'm thinking. Weird, but whatever. Eventually I see both lights turn suddenly and bolt in one direction. From what I can make out, they found who they were looking for. Again, I can't see much except for the flashlight's beams. The 2 flashlight people are laughing maniacally now and it's creepy. Then I hear a loud woman scream and the movement of the light stops in one spot and she continues to scream. It then sounds like she's being beaten and assaulted. I have no clue what to do. I'm unarmed and quite far from them. So I pack up camp and decide to head to the ranger's station. No cell service. It's rough terrain at night and I'm off trail with no GPS, and while I have great sense of direction normally, at night I can't see my landmarks. So to be safe I stop and decide to wait for sunup. Hardly sleep, and as the sun comes up I figure out where I am and continue back to my car and the ranger's station. I finally arrive exhausted, but the station is closed. I find the number to the park service and make a report. They thank me and said they would send out search and rescue. I follow the news the next couple days but don't hear anything, and I'm extremely curious. So I call back the park service and ask to speak to the same guy I filed the report with. Apparently they found the people almost immediately, all camped out together. After some questioning it comes out that they, 2 men and 1 woman, were playing a fantasy game in the woods. It was a relief to learn that no one was harmed, but holy crap, it freaked me out. It was over 10 years ago now when a friend and I visited Japan. It was our first time there, so we went with a tour company. However, after the tour ended we stayed an extra night in a hotel in East Ikebukuro. During the tour leader tell us stories of haunted hotels and other urban myths, as you do over beers or when you're enjoying a late night onsen. One of the things he'd tell us was to be wary if you find a room where the head of the bed was positioned next to the window. So if you look up while lying in bed you look out the window. He'd try to scare us by saying in those rooms ghosts would come through the window at night and drag you out to your doom. Back to the East Ikebukuro Hotel. We check in the early evening and the first thing we notice is how small the room was. The second thing was they gave us a double bed instead of twin singles. The third, the bed head was right next to the window. We rationalized that the room was too small really to line the bed any other way, and the tour leader was full of shit. To be honest, we were more annoyed that we had to share a double bed. All homo. We decided to just let it go since it was just for one night. So we went out for dinner before turning in for the night. That night I get woken up by a door slamming shut and I jolt up. There, sitting at the foot of the bed, is a woman in a blue kimono. She had long hair and from what could make out, her kimono had butterflies on it. I freak out, dive and bury my head under my pillow. Looking back, that was a useless move if anything bad were to happen. I remember thinking, is this real? How can I check without looking? In my genius I decided to shuffle my foot down the bed thinking if I don't touch anything it's just my imagination. I didn't think about what I'd do if I did touch something. Little by little my foot moves down the bed when I notice that there is definitely a depression at the foot of the bed. Thing was there. I retreat my foot, start to sweat and at this point just start repeatedly saying the Lord's Prayer till I must have fainted or fallen back asleep. I remember waking up at 6 the next morning and my friend was already dressed and packed. I asked him if he saw or heard anything last night and all he says is I don't want to talk about it, let's check out. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm only 16 so I hope you didn't cringe from the editing. I hope we can get to 50,000 subscribers because I wouldn't be here without all of you. So thank you so much for your time and energy, and please subscribe.